I'm Vivek Sinha, one of the General Secretary of FISI, welcoming you to this great conference on one of the most intriguing question, and as per Sanatan Dharma, central to our existence. The Friends of India Society International has conducted seminar, workshop, and presentation by distinguished persons on matter of India and the world at large. Friends of India Society International plans to educate the Friends of India all over the world in support of India causes and the world togetherness. In this series, we have a very dynamic presentation on a very good topic by our own Dr. Surendra Rai. Today's topic is Atman Vigyan in Upanishad and Gita, a model-based understanding. This topic is central to the understanding of Sanatan Dharma and very unique, which we generally relate to a group of people, whereas in my opinion, this central idea is really a gift of the land called Bharat to the world. As we start the program, please mute yourself throughout as well as during the Q&A. Please note to leave your question with your name in the chat box. I will be presenting as many questions possible during the Q&A session. At this time, I have pleasure to present to our esteemed leader, the International President of Friends of India Society International, Dr. Bhishma Agnihotri.
And namaskar to everybody. It is great to be here and great to be here to listen to our good friend, my good friend, Sureshji. Sureshji is a great scholar. We know it. He is also a humanist. He's a great thinker. Much above, he's a very, very humble, honest person. Just before we started, he said that, do we have any other person to work with me? So that's the way he is. He always wants to be in the background all the time. But I have enjoyed my years with him in many capacities. I honor him for his dedication for his causes and the fact, despite the fact he is expert in various things in academics. He's a distinguished professor. He's a scientist. He's a great organizer of the student bodies. But in addition to that, he's a great believer in Hindu traditions and Hindu ethos and values. And I have to say something now which may not be totally relevant, but it's not irrelevant. All his good qualities he have achieved himself. But I want to remember a person who has been very close to him, who happened to be his wife. He is no longer with us. He went away more than 25 years ago, but we loved her. She was a great sister. She was a great person. In addition, she was a great poet. She was a poetess. She used to sing poetry. And I remember just before, a few days before his death with cancer, I requested her, can he sing a poem? He was ready to do it. And he was so perfect. She was so much in confidence, love, affection. And I always tell my wife that if I can think of any good sister, she is the one, she was the one. So our speaker has acquired many of her traits in his life. After when she left. She had been a yogi, he has been a yogi, dedicated to his work and to the spiritualism and everything else. So I thought it is time for you also to share his views, ideas, and his personality. And he is our friend, Suresh Raiji. Dr. Suresh Raiji, please bless us with your wisdom.
Thank you, Agnatraji. Let me start with the sharing. I have prepared a lot of slides and I want to go through them with them, but let's see. Can you see it?
Yes, Sureshji.
Now, let me make it a little larger. And let me take the controls from my screen out. Okay, I can see now screen my better. Okay, so thank you Agnotriji for the introduction and encouragement that you provided throughout the preparation of this talk. I will like to thank Mohan, who is in the audience, for his suggestions that help clear some of my misinterpretations. I appreciate all of you for attending this talk. Now, whatever views I am going to present, I have learned them as a student of science and spirituality. My student status is still unchanged. Every day I realize I know nothing as my Swadhyay continues. So I request you to take my narratives with open mind. Let me apologize beforehand for my busy or crowded slides. I couldn't stop myself as thoughts prevailed during revisions of these slides. Unfortunately, I have gone through n iterations and I lost the count when n exceeded 15. To prepare this talk, I have considered various tenets of Indian spirituality, such as Kapil's Sankhya Yoga, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Vaisesik Nyaya, Purva and Uttar Mimamsa, including Buddhist philosophy. There are intricate differences in these tenets and also with various schools within Mahayana Buddhism. And you might be familiar with two important Mahayana Buddhisms, Sunyabad or Madhyamik by Nagarjuna and Vigyanbad or Yogchar by two brothers, Asang and Vasubandhu. Now, all I'm trying to, or all they have tried to do to explain the ultimate truth, which is Anam, there is no name to that ultimate truth, and Arup, there is no form to that ultimate truth. And Vedas have aptly confirmed Ekam Sat Vipra Bauda Vadanti, means truth is one and it is said by many learned people in different ways. Now here I should also point out that there is a book. I have read the English version. I couldn't get the Sanskrit version. The title is The Awakening of Faith, and it is attributed to Asu Ghosh and published by Columbia University Press. This is just like Gita for Mahayana Buddhism. So if you have not seen this book, I will like, if you are interested, to check it out. Now, this talk tries to present a common framework for these differing ideologies with focus on alleviating suffering. It is always relevant, but quite appropriate in this pandemic. There are three sources of sufferings: internal, that comes from body and mind; external, that comes through societal contexts; and other, that doesn't have any seen causes. So they are mostly unseen causes behind this. Now, to alleviate these sufferings, use both scientific and holistic approaches. And if you are interested in spirituality, pick one that suits to your temperament. I will prefer to call it Swabhav. Practice all efforts with discipline. Practice is abhyas, efforts tap, and discipline anusasan. So these are three important things in Patanjali Yoga Sutra 2. And keep on doing till these things become intuitive to you, or you become sahaj with them. So with this introduction, or with this opening paragraph, let me move on to this title and the four things that you see along with the title. The first one is Gita verse 7.3. And I have used, since it is a model based, so you will find a lot of models in this presentation. So the first one is using the mapping concept, and verse 7.3 says that there are thousands, and out of those thousands, hardly few take an effort to know me. So this is the first triangle. And again, out of those thousands who take an effort, hardly one or two really know me. So you can see that Atma Vigyan is quite easy, but it takes a lot of effort to achieve it. And to give you an example, how do I know that I know about him? So simple example is just say cow. If I say cow, most of you think about the sabd, that is COW as cow. Some people go behind that sabd and they see the form or roop, that is, it is a four-legged animal. But hardly one or two person go behind that roop and know that I'm talking about Atman or Atma, that is in cow. And that, to give a few examples, was with Maharshi Raman or with Ramakrishna. And I'm not sure that we are there or we will be there. At least I'm not there. I'm still in the first triangle that is doing my effort. Coming back to the second one, the fabric of the cosmos, this was aired on Nova about 8 or 9 years ago. And the author, who is a physicist, first talks about space, both Newtonian space and also the Einstein's flexible space. So the first 1 hour is devoted to dimensionality, and the next one is devoted to time. Towards the end of this TV show, the author alludes to Advait philosophy. It means he talks about Maya. And what he says that our existence is like a play in the world theater, which is exactly what Advait philosophy is. Or we are like a movie uh, actors, and the movie is being played on a big screen of space time, which he considers the first volume. Another important thing is, and this movie is played again and again. It means we were there, we are now, and we were there earlier, we are now, and we will be sometimes in distant future too. And this statement is not mine, but it is echoed by Gita verse 9.8. And I'm going to quote the translation by Tilak. Taking in hand my own prakrit, I create again and again all the collection of created beings. This is verse 9.8. Now onwards, I will call it as B-centric. B for Brahma, Brahm. So this is Brahm-centric when he says that I create again and again all the collection of created beings. So my model now onwards will call this as B-centric. Another verse 9.10 or 10, I'm using the translation by Sivanand, and it goes like this. Under me as supervisor, Prakrit produces the moving and unmoving. In this case, the initiative, although I am there, I means Brahm, but it is done by Prakrit. So I will call this as P-centric. Now onwards, we will be using B-centric and P-centric, and they are just the models for verse 9.8 and 9.10. Remember that B-centric is Vedant philosophy. P-centric is Sankhya Yoga. So what Vedant says that it is done by me, and Prakrit is a tool, or Prakrit is working just like Maya. In P-centric, he says, or Brahm says, that it is done by Prakrit, but I'm supervising it. So keep these two things in mind. And also one more thing in mind, that in 9.8 and in 9.10, he mentions Jagat bi parivartate, means there is a periodicity in these things. And that's what this video on cosmos alludes to in the second part towards the end. So this is about Atma Vigyan, and we will keep on going. All I want you to remember, B-centric and P-centric. The next thing is pain or alleviate suffering. Buddha once said that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And that's what we are going to focus, that how we can make this optional suffering, or how we can alleviate it even if we are going through pain. The last quote I have paraphrased. This has come from Dalai Lama, from his book, The Universe in a Single Atom. And I have also picked a similar narrative in Savarkar's Hindutva philosophy. And both I have paraphrased like this: scriptures and science, though differ, share the same end. What is the same end? To alleviate suffering. This is the same end for both. Use reason, logic, and faith. So this triplet, reason, logic, and faith, can be used to define not only scriptures, but also religion and also science. So in case of religion, reason and logic, they are hardly 5%. I mean, I'm just tossing a number. Faith is more pronounced. In case of spirituality, reason, logic, and faith, they are well balanced. In case of science, reason and logic are much more and faith is less. So this triplet basically covers all the three Gyan modes. So having made this clear, let me move on to the next one. Now, these topics will be more clear if I explain the framework. If you consider science, science is nothing but interplay of energy and matter. On the other hand, spirituality is interplay of Purus and Prakrit. What is Prakrit? Prakrit is matter plus. Matter plus means it is both energy and matter that science defines. Plus, it has Purus, which is, again, I'm calling it as energy. I'm not calling it, other people have done it so. But this energy is Gya, means it is intelligent. On the other hand, the matter plus or Prakrit is Agya, means unintelligent. So now onwards, when I say Purus and Prakrit, keep in mind that it is not exactly same as energy and matter that most people think about, but it is slightly more than that. And if I consider matter plus, it captures both energy and matter interplay that is given in science. Now, what is good about this? Good about spirituality. It talks about ecology too, because it deals with interconnectedness. And it says that both sentient and non-sentient world, they are related, they are part of one family. And that's where the word Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam comes into picture. Now, as I said earlier, that we are going to talk about both Sanatan as well as Buddhist philosophies. So that's what I mean by orthodox and heterodox philosophies. And B-centric, I have just explained. So these are different forms of B-centric. That is Brahm only, Brahm with Prakrit. And most of you know Brahm only as Advait, Brahm and Prakrit. Brahm and Prakrit as Dvait. And Brahm, Purus, sorry. The first one is Brahm only, next one is Brahm and Purus. I don't know what is happening to my pointer. Brahm and Purus. The next one is Brahm, Purus, and Prakrit. So these three are examples of B-centric, and P-centric is where the Prakrit produces in guidance of or in supervision of Brahm is P and P, means Purus and Prakrit. And four of them, B, BP, BPP, and PP, they are orthodox, and P is part of heterodox, and we will consider them. Now, to avoid confusion, means Dvait, Advait, Trait, they have some other special meanings too. I will be using the words like one sum, because one is involved in B, one is involved in P. So these are the two examples of one sum. two-sum BP or PP, and three-sum BPP. So I will use Dwayat thread too, because most of you are familiar with these terms, but I will prefer to use one sum, two sum, and three sum. Now, based on this framework, let's see what we are going to discuss under various topics. Taittiriya Upanishad, Patanjali Yoga is mainly about P, that is Prakrit. Commentaries on Gita is talking about BP. Why Atma Vigyan? So I will consider examples from physics, I will biology, and holistic. So I will consider 3 examples to explain why we need Atma Vigyan. And then I will focus on BPP, triune or three-sum model, because it captures everything, all the models. Then I will discuss various other isms. You must have heard about Suddha Dvayat, Dvaita Dvayat, etc., etc. So I will try to make those things clear. I will not go into the microcosm. It was getting lengthy anyway. It has run up to 28 slides. But I will consider microcosm from both Sankhya and Vedanta philosophy. As I said earlier, that the movie or play is played again and again, so there is certain periodicity, and Gita said, Jagat be parivartate. So we will talk about the periodicity too, and also eschatology. To me, it sounds like different universes. And finally, we will come to Q&A. Now, I'm not going to do Santi part, but I have picked up this Santi part for 2 reasons. It is quite appropriate because it takes divine intervention as well as individual effort towards learning. And at the same time, it presents a disclaimer. May we not mutually dispute, or may we not hate any. So I will go ahead with the same disclaimer that whatever you find in these slides, it is my truth. Your truth may be different, but all are towards the ultimate truth. So there is no dispute between one truth or the other truth, because the eventual goal is the ultimate truth. Now, coming back to the suffering model, as I said that these are the 5 orthodox models, B, BP, BPP, and PP. This is the tenet of Hindu philosophy. In this case, is or self or purus, you can name it by anyone, is the interconnecting identity. So is interconnects everything, and is eternal. In the second one, which is P only, which is also the backbone for Buddhist philosophy, the non-self or Prakrit interconnects everything, and Prakrit is always changing. And what is suffering? The suffering in the first orthodox principle starts with ignorance that leads to dualism between raga and dvesh, that leads to mind fluctuation. Remember that mind fluctuation can easily be monitored with pranas. So whenever mind is fluctuating, pranas are fluctuating. Whenever prana is fluctuating, mind is fluctuating. So they go hand in hand together. So ignorance leads to mind or prana fluctuation. That leads to pravritti. So what is pravritti? Any fluctuation that is done again and again becomes pravritti. Vritti is fluctuation, and pra means doing it again and again. And that governs the action. Action is responsible for birth-death cycle, and birth-death cycle is responsible for all the suffering. So it starts with ignorance and ends up with suffering. And that's what Buddha said, that you can, means pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So through going from ignorance to vivek or vidya, you can control the suffering. The other model, that is the Buddhist philosophy, considers it is based on 4 basic concepts. One is truth of suffering, dukh hai. Truth of cause, there is a reason for this suffering. Truth of extension, since everything is impermanence, so this suffering is impermanent too. And follow eightfold path. So it is a very practical methodology that was suggested by Buddha. One thing that is common between these orthodox and heterodox philosophy is both rely on birth-death cycle. Here I have come with some postulates because to understand something, whenever we started learning geometry, we started learning the postulates first. So I have come out with these 4 postulates. Some of them are redundant too. For example, in Vedas, a Rit principle is also responsible for causality principle, but I have kept them separate. And let's go ahead with the causality first, that there is causality or there is cause-effect phenomena, and karma and the fall for the karma both are governed by cause and effect, and that is part of both orthodox and heterodox philosophies. So in this case, you have all the rights to do karma. You cannot live without doing karma. If a person is dead, only the person is not doing any karma. So all of us are bound to do karma. It is inevitable, but its fall is not in our hands. It is rit-based. It is in somebody's health, somebody's hand. And there are many verses in Gita that talk about this. And we have just now discussed suffering from Vedantic principle, and finally down the suffering from Buddhist philosophies. Now, we will talk about antakaran, that is 4 components of internal instrument. This is a key to deal with the ignorance, so we will talk about this. But these 4 components are not only here, but some people also know them as Purusarth, Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha. And I can say that these are 4 concentric circles. Dharma is the outer circle, Arth is inner to that, Kam is further inner to that, and Moksha is finally the inside circle. What it says that Dharma is important, whatever your actions are, they are important. And if your actions lead to your earth, means, if I literally translate, then I can say that with your jivika, then it is good. And under this, the 3rd circle, whatever your desires are, if they are governed by dharma and earth, this is better. And finally, if you have followed first 3 concentric circles, then moksha is bound to come. So most people talk about only these 4 components because it is easy to understand. Patanjali has also given his concepts, and that is practicing detachment. But once you practice, you should have a discipline. So this is about causality. Now let's come to the Rit principle. According to this, whatever is in our inside, the same is outside. So the reason for microcosm and the reason for macrocosm, they are same. Are individual and cosmos, they have the same. So if you understand one, you can understand another one. In Hindi, we normally say that जो पिंड में है वही ब्रह्मांड में है, या जो ब्रह्मांड में है वही पिंड में है. What is inside us, that is also, or that is the same in the cosmos. And Is Upanishad says that all being, that Atman is in all beings, whether they are non-sentient or sentient. So this is providing a connectedness or one sub-concept. You, I think, have also heard the same statement in a different way. Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Pragyanam Brahm, Ayam Atma Brahm, and all these Mahavakyas are from 4 Vedas. The Pragyanam Brahm is from Rig Veda, Aham Brahmasmi from Yajur Veda, Tattvamasi from Sam Veda, and Ayam Atma Brahm from Atharva Veda. We also know that Soham is used, but Soham is normally used for meditation purposes because it rhymes well with inhaling and exhaling. So I have not put it, some people put not 4, but 5 Mahavakya. I have kept it separate. The truth principle is Brahm is limitless and inclusive. And as I said earlier, Ekam Sat Vipra Baudha Vadanti. This verse is not only in Rig Veda, but it is also echoed in Upanishads and also in Mahabharata. Coming back to commonality principle, Brahm or Purus is working like subject, Prakriti is working like object, or in Hindi we can call them as one is observer and another is seen. So Drashta and Drishya. One is Gya, I have already said that one is intelligent, eternal. Other is Agya, non-intelligent and transient. Now coming back to the properties of Prakriti, Prakriti is generative, and it has 3 constituents of gunas, Sattva, Tamas, and Raj. Sattva is illuminating and transparency. Tamas is veiling and inertia. Rajas is energy and activity. And it can also, means the Prakriti can be in 2 different states. One is Abhyakt, that is undifferentiated, and another is Vyakt, that is differentiated. So whenever Prakriti comes in contact with Purus, it is differentiated or it becomes Vyakt. We have talked about knowing oneself is good. Yes, I have considered only 3 chapters from Gita, 7, 8, and 9, because they have given all the concepts behind this slide. It doesn't mean that these concepts are not there in Gita elsewhere, but I have focused only on these 3 chapters. I have also focused on 5 Upanishads, that is Is, Ken, Katha, Mundak, and Mandukya. Shankaracharya considers 11 out of 108 Upanishads as important ones. And all these 11 Upanishads talk about, first they are the excerpts from Rig Veda, Sam Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda. So they are the Gyan Khand of these Vedas. And they provide philosophical perspective on Brahma. So we will talk about Brahma in more detail. Life and its origin. I have given only one slide. That is the next one on life and its origin. I have given only one slide for bliss and yoga. That is again the following slide. Coming back to Brahma, it is easy to define Brahma by negation. And that's why neti neti is used. Once you say he is name, no. He is form, no. He is material, no. Is he dependent on time, space? No. So neti neti is stationary, non-stationary. So everything by negation, you can define Brahma. And we also consider singularity to singularity movement. That is, let me pick up my notes. That is, in the linear case, the first starting point is Big Bang, and the last starting point is Big Crunch. That's what most science considers. But science doesn't give a good explanation what was at T minus, that is what was before Big Bang, and what will be after Big Crunch, that is T plus. So that is a linear model going from singularity to singularity. In circular model, that both, I can say, let me focus on orthodox first. So the orthodox philosophies consider that we start from one singularity, and starting point is Brahma. Then we are in the sustaining period, that is Vishnu, and there is an end, and that end is Shiva. Or we go through the cycle of evolution and involution. In this model, the T minus and T plus question is not there. But another question is, who is Brahma? That is, what is the Brahma from which Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva start, sustain, and try to maintain this cycle. So the big question is Brahma. And that's what we have said. Brahma is defined as neti neti, means by negation. In simple terms, we can say that niskam karma, self-knowledge, bhakti, and all these are nothing but parts of Gita. Then I think I will skip this one. Now, many religions consider only one life. So here is a comparison between one life versus many life through rebirth or birth cycle. The individual, most individual for one lifers are materialistic, not all, but most of them. And a good number of people in the other category are non-materialistic. As a society is consuming for one lifer. Society is coexisting for many lifers. And overall, the people or society believe in pleasure in first case and happiness in the second case. What is true, what is not true, I am not an expert to comment on this. Now, with many life believers, all bodies that exist in nature are interconnected, which is commonly known by the phrase Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And whether they are inanimate or animate. And the creation, that is the origin of life, it starts with the concept Ekoham Bhavasyami, means him wishing to be many. So his will is independent of karma. Our wish, is governed by karma, but his is not. I think I will skip this slide. So let's come to, oops. This is our first P model. And it is described, Panchkos is described in Taittiriya Upanishad, Patanjali Yoga is Ashtanga Yoga, and Prakrit. And normally we used a triangle pointing downward for this phenomena. Prakrit can be in two states. One is undifferentiated, where it is completely balanced, and differentiated, where it is agitated or unbalanced. Sometimes people use Prakrit and Vikrit, but if we use Prakrit for the first one, then people use Mool Prakrit for undifferentiated one. This can further be divided as physical body, astral body, and causal body, so that it can be mapped into Panchkos. And further, I have tried to map them into various Ashtanga Yoga from Patanjali. Remember that Ashtanga Yoga by Patanjali is nothing but a lab manual, means it provides how to live a healthy and blissful life. The last one, Jad or inert. So this Prakriti is Jad or inert, and it combines with Chetan or consciousness to generate the life force. So this is the important philosophy in this system. If I look into various commentaries on Gita, basically I have looked into 5 of them. One by Lahiri Mahoday. It is a rare book. Somebody gifted it to me. And this is exclusively written in terms of Sankhya Yoga. So there is no deviation for anything. The first page onwards is based on completely Sankhya Yoga. Ram Sukhdas is written from the Bhakti point of view. Gandhi and Tilak, it is from Karma point of view. And Radhakrishnan, Gita is from Gyan point of view. So various Gitas highlight these 4 things: Karma, Bhakti, Gyan, and Sankhya are path of action, path of devotion, path of knowledge, and path of meditation. And these concentric circles basically depict that you cannot live. As long as you are living, you are doing karma. So action is in the outer ring. Bhakti is debatable, but let's consider this. Out of 100% people who are alive doing karma, one or the other, we can argue the quality. Some percentage, 70-80% people are devoted to bhakti. Another 50-60% are towards Gyan. And finally, very few practicing Sankhya Yoga or meditation. Ram Sukh Das, who is mainly devoted to bhakti, says that this particular division or particular narration for dividing is not correct. He says that body is part of karma. Sariri means Paravidya or Atma, you can say, is part of Gyan. So they are the outer rings, and Bhakti, which is done by Sarir and Sariri, means by body, and Atma is related to ease, and that forms the innermost circle. So again, it is subject to discussion. The next question is why Atma Vigyan? Because the title is Atma Vigyan in Upanishads and Gita. So what I have considered first is the science perspective. And in this case, it says that a reality or life is nothing but an outcome of science model. It could be from physics, it could be from biology or chemistry, but it is an outcome of science. And again, from the physics, the division is going towards from subtle to subtler to subtlest, that is smallest, and going in the sphere, that is from big to bigger to biggest. So these are two basic areas of considering Atma Vigyan. The problem is not with matter, particle, atom, or subatomic particle. The problem starts with particle wave duality, or further down, existence, non-existent duality in quantum. How to explain that? At the larger model or the bigger model, Earth, solar system, galaxy, nebula, expanding is fine, but contracting, universe with periodicity means does it, or what the periodicity is, it is linear from Big Bang to Big Crunch, or it is circular. So there are unanswered questions in this area too. Coming back to biology or chemistry, cell, nucleus, protoplasm, chromosome, gene, DNA, RNA, genotype, phenotype, but how to define experience, imagination, desire, ego. Some people say that it is epiphenomena, but is it true that they are epiphenomena? Here is a simple example from quantum theory. First, I have put them in simple word, neither present nor absent at a place, neither moving nor at rest. And if I quote Oppenheimer, we can say that if you ask, for instance, whether the position of the electron remains the same, we must say no. If we ask whether the electron's position changes with time, we must say no. If we ask whether the electron is at rest, we must say no. If we ask whether it is in motion, we must say no. And see that how it matches with verse number 5 from Isha Upanishad. It moves and it moves not. It is far and it is near. It is within all this and it is also outside all this. Now let's consider the holistic model, which is basically about oneness. And that's where I have considered Hindu, Buddhist, Jain. I have not gone into the details of Jain, but I have considered Lokayat, that is the Charvak principle too. But because Charvak principle is quite simple, it is just a one model P. So Orthodox or Astic schools consider these four variants. B means Brahm centric or B-centric. BP, PP is also B-centric, and BPP. And the basic idea here is whatever जो पिंड में है वही ब्रह्मांड में है, the one that I have already said. And in case of Gnostic or heterodox principle, I will consider only one, that is the Buddhist philosophy, because at least karma principle or karma theory is there. And the Mahayana part of Bauddha Darshan considers two variations, one by Nagarjuna and other by Asanga and Vasubandhu. Asanga and Vasubandhu consider suchness or the-ness. Nagarjuna consider void or Sunyabad. And Asoghosh is just like Gita for Buddhist, just like Krishna is attributed for Gita, Asoghosh is attributed for the awakening of faith. No Sanskrit version is available, but people have translated it from Chinese to Tibetan to English, and eventually it is printed by Chicago University Press. Okay, here I have picked up few examples from whatever verses you see in Hindi. I wrote them in my book, The Essence of Truth, or in Hindi it is Tatyakat. And I have picked up 5 Upanishads. These two are important. Let me take one from Brahm only. That is, it talks about Is as Atman is in all beings, non-sentient or sentient. So there is no other thing. Whatever other thing is, that is Maya. And in the second case, let me take an example from Mundak Upanishad. As the spider constantly creates and destroys its web, threads at its will, so does immortal Brahma. So in this case, there is some difference between Brahma and Purush. And another good example, which is available in Gita and also in Mundak, Dwa Suparna Sayuja Sakhaya, means the Brahm and Atma, they are just like two birds, and one is enjoying the fruits and the other is just watching the first one enjoying the fruits. So let's start with this Brahm, Purus, and Prakrit. Since 1 hour has passed, what is the verdict? Should I continue?
I think your each slide, Dr. Saab, is a whole book on itself. And however you like to conclude, that will be good, because I'm pretty sure it can go for days together.
I mean, I'm just asking the audience because it is too much. So I can stop at, this is a natural end BPP model,
Sure.
or I can continue. And at this point, I'll be on page 14, and we can continue with another page 14 probably next time.
Sure. I think that will be a good way to proceed, if that's okay with you.
No, I'm fine. I mean, it will take. Anyway, so let me finish this one, and then I will ask the general audience for any questions, and then
Sure.
we can go.
Yes.
So here, BPP threesome model is basically talking about Brahm, Purus, and Prakrit. Purus going towards Prakrit is Avidya, Purus going towards Brahm is Vidya. And that's how Vidya and Avidya is defined in various Upanishads, or even in Gita too. I'm not considering the concept from Nyaya, Vaisesik, but I have already considered Sankhya. No, I will consider Sankhya in detail. And there are some difference between Brahm, Purus, Prakrit in these scriptures, but there is no point going into minute details. Remember that the initial philosophy is there is only one truth, and learned decipher it in different ways. So how the creation is started? First of all, we have defined Brahm by negation. There is another definition for Brahm. Brahm is one who is free of time, free of dimension, free of causation, omnipresent, and attributeless. And how the Srishti, or rest of the things, came into existence. You remember the circular path? It started all with the desire, eko ham bahushyam, means I should now divide. The other word is bahusya prajaya, means again I should generate many. And from there, we come to the concept of Purus and Prakrit. Purus is part of Brahm which is tied with Prakrit. You can see the some diagram here. Purus is that part which is generally tied with Prakrit. But once Purus knows or come to full knowledge, it gets tied up with Brahm. So Purus is normally tied with Prakrit, and Purus is enjoyer. How the Purus generates everything with Prakrit? So the literature says that there are two ideas. One is Swaswami Bhav, which is I have called as let me see, which is be-centric, means I'm the master. And the other is bimbi bhav, means I'm reflected in a reflector. So that is the p-centric, means the Prakriti is doing. And I think I have already explained these two concepts, 9.8 and 9.10, Tilak's version and Sivanand version earlier. So let me get out of this sharing so that we can see each other. And oops. Okay, I think I'm right in the middle. So
Thank you, Dr. Saab. I think it's
It is-
such a deep knowledge of your years of study as it is seen by your presentation, and each slide is worth spending days and weeks with you in order to understand and how to implement that. I have one question. Somebody sent an email, so I'll ask that question and see how do you want to respond. So the question is from Kanupriya Prashar. I think she's from India. She's asking how to alleviate misery and death caused by COVID. And the second part is when and how will this end?
in the very beginning, I said that misery is basically an outcome of ignorance. But it doesn't mean that we should try to make ourselves Buddha overnight. You have to practice some of the basic concepts right from childhood, I should say. But still, what we can do is by reading Gita, by reading scriptures, we can come to terms with death in the family, as I went through and I did. One of my nearest, you know that I was scheduled to talk about this
Ji.
earlier, but something happened in the family and I was going through the same phase, but this lecture helped me to come to normal. So I'm the good example
Very
for
good.
our question.
Thank you. Actually, there's one question I have through your talk. You mentioned the word Eko Aham Bahushyami. So if the Lord is the one who is manifesting in all, why are we bound by the karma and he is not?
If you remember, let's consider the threesome model.
Mhm.
That is Brahm, Purush, and Prakriti. So Purush is the replica of Brahm, right? But Purush is connected with Prakriti. And that's where the problem is. As long as Purush or Atma is connected with Prakriti, which is changing, the effect will be on Purush. And how Purush will know that I should be disconnected from Prakriti? Only Prakriti can help. And that's where all these spirituality or these things come into picture. So Prakriti is the reason for binding, and Prakriti is also the reason for liberation. Atma is just there, enjoying. So as soon as Atma will come to know, how it will come to know? Again through Prakriti. So it's a catch 2020.
Yes, thank you. We have a lot of thank you notes for you, actually, which is showing your effort. And there's one question just came by Satyaji. Is Purush same as subtle body?
In subtle body is part of Prakriti. Mohan, are you there? I'm just asking for some wise person's help. But subtle body
Yes,
is.
Sureshji, I'm here.
You are there. So please correct me if I am if I am wrong. So subtle body is part of Prakriti, or to be correct, I mean, in fine details, it is part of the differentiated Prakriti. So
That is correct. From a Sankhyan philosophy point of view, there is Purush and Prakriti. Prakriti, from Vedantic perspective as well as Sankhya perspective, Prakriti has got subtle, gross, and causal bodies. So it's part of Prakriti. So Purush is different from Prakriti, therefore it's not part of the subtle body.
is it clear?
Thank you, sir. So that means is Purush a reflection of Atman?
Again, I said that there are two models, B-centric and P-centric, means Vedantic principle and Sankhya Yoga. So in one case, and Gita verse 9.8 and 9.10 talk about that. So in one case, in B-centric, I'm repeating it again, the translation from Tilak, taking in hand my own Prakriti, means my means Purush, taking in hand Prakriti, I create again and again all the collection of created bodies. So this is Brahm doing it, or Purush doing it. And 9.10 from Sivanand, under me as supervision, Prakriti produces. So that's what I was going to discuss in the other part, how that production takes place. But based on these two models, you can get the answer.
If I may, Sureshji.
Sure.
If you look at Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, Purushottam Yoga, there, chapter 15, Shlok 16, Krishna says, there are two Purushas, one Shara Purusha and one Akshara Purusha. Akshara Purusha is Prakriti. Akshara Purusha is Purush, and Shara Purusha is Prakriti. And I am in top of these two. I control these two. So two Purushas are controlled by me, that means Brahman. So to answer the question, yes, it's a reflection of Brahman, the Purusha. One is Akshara Purusha, the other one is Akshara Purusha. One who controls this is Brahma, which is Purushottama. My understanding.
There is another, not another, Sri Aurobindo's explanation of Purush and Prakriti is, as you're saying in Gita from the Purushottam Yoga, is a Sachidanand who is manifesting himself in Purush and Prakriti, Char Akshar, you call it. And as per Sri Aurobindo, Prakriti and Purush, who is alone and the perfect. Prakriti is trying to make all the manifestation as Purush, as perfect and as alone. So this is the continuous process of Purush trying to make every manifestation happening and continuously will happen infinite and make it as perfect as Purush himself.
I mean, that sounds, I mean, I cannot challenge Aurobindo. My knowledge is not that much,
So
but
in Savitri, there is a book called Savitri by Sri Aurobindo. There's a book 1, Canto 4, which is called Secret Knowledge, which has a lot of details about this manifestation and the creation and Purush and Prakriti.
Right. So what I have done here is I have taken out most of the details and presented a framework, right, for the things. And with this framework, I think it will be a lot more easier for those people who have, I mean, some of them are really scared to read these books. I hope they will no longer be scared. That's my whole purpose.
Sureshji,
Haji.
I could add, you have started with chapter 8, and this is all, Brahma Gyan or Brahma Vidya, and it goes in verses 8, 3, 4, 5. So there is Brahma or Par Brahma, or we can call as, Paramatma or Atma. So that is how the Purusha can be considered in those two. And they are in chapter 8.
Ravi, I have picked up chapters 7, 8, and 9.
Yes, this is in chapter 8, 8 verse 3, 4, and 5. If you look at it, goes into that distinction and how the Purusha can go either bonded with the Brahma or with Prakriti. And that is how it could be either superior spiritual consciousness or material entanglement, which are the two things which are going, and that's how the Brahma is playing, in my understanding. But I think you did a wonderful and very detailed analysis. This requires more discussion, maybe.
So
at another time.
Right. I mean, I'm right in the very middle, and there is no point in going for one more hour on such a real heavy material.
Yes, it is.
So
you have done a wonderful analysis and a very detailed analysis. Good.
So,
excellent.
I mean, from this triune or threesome model, I have still not considered the Sankhya Yoga, Advait, and Antakaran. Then some of those things are still left out. And I hope I will be able to do it, maybe, if Agnihotri ji allows, sometimes later.
Yes. बीज जी आप अनम्यूट कर लीजिए अपने को.
अग्निहोत्री जी आप अनम्यूट करिए अपने को.
देखिए बहुत अच्छा हुआ, इट्स वेरी नाइस, बहुत अच्छा हुआ. तो इससे समय तो बहुत कम था और बहुत कुछ कह दिया आपने. I mean, there are a lot to be said, many things, but let us see, as you say, it's outline kind of thing that we can go in depth. So विवेक जी हमारा प्रबंध करेंगे कि कोई नेक्स्ट मीटिंग पे या नेक्स्ट मीटिंग पे हम टाइम लेके सभी तैयार होके आएंगे, तो फिर 1-2 घंटे का प्रोग्राम करेंगे, ठीक है ना?
और बीज जी, डॉक्टर पुरोहित इज नॉट हियर, सो इफ आई मे आस्क,
आप ही कह दीजिए. देखिए मैं तो सिर्फ धन्यवाद करूंगा आपको. थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर कमिंग. और सुरेश जी, अभी तो आपका शुरू हुआ आना, अभी आते हैं हमारे, ये हमारे मेंबर हैं, रेगुलरली आते हैं। तो अभी तो चालू हुआ है, इसके बाद ये कार्यक्रम चलता रहेगा। ये जो टॉपिक इन्होंने शुरू किया है ना, इट इज ऑलमोस्ट उपन्यास, काफी ज्यादा टाइम लगेगा। इसमें कभी कभी बीच बीच में जाना पड़ेगा एक एक पॉइंट को लेके। और विवेक जी भी हमारे बड़े समझदार आदमी हैं, तो ये भी बीच में मिलते रहेंगे। तो इस पर अलग सा एक सेमिनार रख देंगे बैठ के ना, कि 1-2 घंटे का पूरा यही बच्चा चर्चा होती है, तो अच्छा रहेगा। अगली बार तो एक कुछ टॉपिक हमने चुन लिया है, बताऊंगा मैं कल आपको लेटर लिखूंगा सबको। लेकिन उसके बाद जो नेक्स्ट होगा उसके, वो हम इसके तरफ जाएंगे, ताकि आप सब आप तैयार भी हो जाएंगे और भी सोच लेंगे क्या पूछना है आपको। ठीक है ना, अच्छा रहेगा आपको। धन्यवाद, बहुत 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 कृपा,
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
और सबको आने के लिए धन्यवाद। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
नमस्ते।
नमस्ते जी।
नमस्ते।
नमस्कार जी। उर्मिला जी, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, आप आए।